Alright, so this is part 3 of Fortress America. I have completed the battles here for the invaders on the opening turn. Pretty bloody so far. For the south, I declared battles in Phoenix and pretty much along the south edge. We did an airborne landing a little bit deeper inbound just to try to get a foothold a little bit further inland. And basically only actually attacked San Antonio and Phoenix. We could have attacked San Diego, but I'd like to leave that for the West's sphere of influence. The invaders are kind of on the same team, but if you take control of an area, then another invader can't pass through it. So I'd rather have, and we pretty much have San Diego surrounded now. You can't move diagonally, like across the corner there from San Diego to where the American troop is. And it was kind of a tough decision because one of the soldiers here, one of the infantry in Phoenix, had to retreat. I could have retreated him here, but then he would be completely surrounded. Supply is irrelevant for the Americans. There's no supply rules for them. But still, if you're surrounded, you can't retreat, and that just increases the lethality of the die roll results. So this is the situation here, and now we're ready to do invasion movement. Let me show you what happened on the eastern seaboard. Could have attacked Washington, D.C., but it's pretty strongly defended, and it's likely to suffer a really, really tough counterattack, even if we do take it in an opening turn. So I think it's better just to get ashore and start a buildup, and then try pushing north. But instead, we do try to take out the Florida cities, Tampa and Miami, right away. So our heavy attack went there. Took some casualties, as you can see here by the boneyard. Some serious casualties, actually, but we were able to wipe out the hover tank and the infantry that were defending Florida. So that's the situation. We can now move into the areas that we have declared battles in, and try to we'll then be able to capture those areas. Okay, so now all of our battles are completed. Our invasion movement is now completed. We can now take control of the areas that are occupied by our troops. So for the invaders, we'll start over here in the west, and we'll be able to take this control marker and flip it over. Portland will also flip over. Here you can see where the congestion can be something of an issue. We put that over there on the victory track. So we're going to do this for all of our cities that we've and territories where we have friendly troops. Got San Francisco, LA, Phoenix, alright, airborne landing here. We reinforced it with some of the helicopters that participate in attacks. The attack on San Diego is a bit more bloody than I would have liked, and so I was not able to actually enter any troops into this area that I declared. Since there are no troops there, the marker goes away, and it remains a U.S. controlled territory. Basically, the U.S. controls everything that the invaders don't on the map. That's a good way of thinking of it. Okay, Florida. We're going to pick up Miami, Tampa. So you see, the goal is to get 18 of these cities, and a bunch of them are going to fall right away. But you'll find eventually that the invaders' strength, it kind of surges, and then it begins to wane. About the same time that the U.S. Takes some really heavy blows early, and then begins to slowly recover through the use of the partisan cards. So that's the situation. We'll put the cities up here on the track. Oops. Here we go. So 7 cities have fallen already here on the opening turn. So that's the situation here, and now we're ready to start the U.S. opening turn. So how this works for the U.S. is the first thing we're going to do is the reinforcement phase, and you're not obliged to do this, but I've placed laser targeting markers on each of the turn tracks to show that each turn I get a new laser. So for turn 1, I'll move the turn marker, I'll take a targeting marker and a laser, and I'll put the laser inside a city like Detroit. Something that's safe from attack, far away, because again, you can't move these things. And then once he's placed, I take the targeting marker, I just kind of set it aside for later. And then the next thing we do is we look over here at the cards, and we're going to rotate these around here like so. We're actually going to pull 2 cards one at a time and resolve them. So here's card number 1. Oh, for crying out loud, I can never get it to focus right. There we go. Desert nomads calling themselves the Scorpions ambush a major supply convoy. Destroy all Western invader mobile units and hover tanks in one territory, then discard this card. So this is a reinforcement that doesn't actually give us a reinforcement, it just kills invaders. So it's got to be a Western invader, it's got to be in one area, and this is probably the best place to do it, and that's in Portland. So we'll take 2 hover tanks out of Portland, and they go to the dead pile. So right off the bat, that's a big blow to the invaders, because again, you don't get those tanks back. All right, card number 2 is now resolved. Let's see what this one says. Mothballed prototype laser complex brought back online at Colorado Springs. Place 1 laser in Colorado Springs, then discard this card. That turns out to be very fortunate early in the game, because Colorado Springs will probably fall to the invader at some point. There is exactly 11 of these lasers, so you're going to get 10 of them through reinforcements, and then the extra one's just a bonus. So I'm going to grab the targeting mark, because there's only 10 targeting markers in the game. I'm going to grab that one from the 10 spot, and I'll grab this. It's kind of funny, I had already offset the marker, but I did shuffle the deck. I did not actually see that we were going to get that guy. Wow, that's going to help the U.S. So that goes there. Oh, I forgot. At the end of the invader's turn, you should take all the guys that were flipped over due to retreat results or doing an airborne landing, or air assault, I guess is what it's called. You should flip them back over to show that they're fully functional again. I think that was all of them that had fallen. Oh, one more. There we go. Okay. So now for the U.S. Here's where it gets tricky. If the U.S. recaptures a city that had fallen to the invader, if you recapture one, then you take the marker, the miniature, off of the victory track and you put it back on the board. And in addition to that, for every city that you recapture, you draw a partisan card and you set it aside. And on the next turn, the next American turn during the reinforcement phase, you'll be able to resolve an extra card. So you're always going to get 2 partisan cards each turn, but you'll also get bonus ones if on the previous turn you recaptured a city that fell. The thing is, you've got to be careful to husband your forces. You have a large military, but it's scattered all over the map, and it's going to take you a while to get some of these guys to where they're needed most. So you want to be careful not to fritter away your strength, because if you attack and fail and a bunch of your guys die, you've just made it easier for the invader. But if you are able to pick off a weakened invader in a city, it's definitely to your advantage to do that, because those partisan cards, as you saw right there, they do help you in a number of ways. Even though in this case it did not actually give us any partisans. Well, as you can see here, the eastern seaboard's pretty well defended. Not really any good attack opportunities to be made. Nothing that really would sting the enemy. I'd like to take on those helicopters, but it's a little risky to do that at this stage. Probably the weakest city being held would be Portland, which has a helicopter and an infantry, but we just don't have the hardware in the neighborhood to deal with an attack. We only have 1 infantry unit, and then the bombers from Salt Lake City would be able to bomb and support, but it's a pretty risky attack. It's not likely to succeed, so we're not going to declare any battles. How do you declare battles with the Americans is you don't have battle tokens. Instead, what you do is you take a control token that's already been placed and you flip it over. And that declares your intention to try to recapture that area. If you wipe all the bad guys out and you happen to be in there at the control phase, then you remove the marker. If for some reason the attack fails and you don't get everybody out of the targeted area, then the target marker is flipped back over to its control side. And that's it. That basically is the nuts and bolts of the game. I'll show you how the lasers work before we end this. Lasers are pretty simple. After you've done all your maneuvering, you've declared all your attacks, all that. In this case, we're not declaring attacks, but we could do our maneuvers. Now, infantry have 0 movement points during the maneuver phase, so they're stuck in place unless you can transport them with your mechs, in which case they can move 1. Helicopters can move 2, bombers can move 4. Tanks, mechs, they always move 1. All right, once you've done all of that, then before you actually resolve any of the battles that you've declared, you take your targeting markers that you have available to you, in our case 2, and you can put them in any area. You do it one at a time, and you place them in any area that does not already contain a targeting marker. So for our purposes, one of the things I like to do is get rid of those enemy bombers ASAP. And so I think I might actually target San Antonio with 1. And I could target these guys with 1. Now here's where it could get interesting, because I would like to target, their Portland. If I had another infantry, I'd actually try this, because I could use my laser to try to kill the helicopter, and then I could use my bombers from Salt Lake to support the attack. The enemies get 1 shot at me, and then I'd be able to blast away with my bombers. Probably going to get at least one kill out of the bombers, and could probably clean them out, assuming that the laser did its job. And then the infantry would march in and recapture the place. The problem is I only have 1 infantry, and it's a 50-50 chance that the defending fire would miss. So I prefer not to take those odds. And if he misses, it could be bad. I can't capture the place with the bombers, so I would just be wasting my strength. So but that shows you some of the choices and tough decisions that you have to make in the game. So with the lasers, it's real simple. You roll a d10, you got to roll a 5 or higher, and then you pick which unit you want to kill. Generally, you want to pick the best unit. So in this case, I'd probably pick one of those bombers. So that's how the lasers work, and as you see, as time goes on, you're going to get more lasers. And you start getting about 4 shots every turn. You can really play havoc with the enemy's air force. And once you knock all their bombers down, then you can start going after their helicopters. Occasionally, you're going to have to take and devote priority to other problems. Like if you're in danger of losing the game, then maybe you have to shift the focus of your laser attacks against cities that you're trying to recapture. So you have to watch out for stuff like that. Anyways, that's pretty much a good overview of the whole game. As you can see, it's simple. The rules are simple enough, but there's a lot of depth to the game and a lot of replayability, because these cards here, this deck is reshuffled before the game, and so things can come up in completely different orders from game to game. Last game I played, the Colorado Springs card came up late in the game and had already fallen to the south, and so the card was completely useless. So you never know exactly what you're going to get with those cards. Once you've played a few times, you get an idea of what some of those cards will do, but the order is so unpredictable that it lends a lot of replayability to the game, whereas in other games of this type, like Axis and Allies, there can be a little bit more of a predictable nature. This game, much less so. There's certain common opening moves, but from that point onwards, things can go really, really different. So that is Fortress America by Fantasy Flight Games. I hope you enjoyed the video.